Hello and welcome to another pick a card reading. In today's reading, we are focusing on facing our fears. We are in the middle of eclipse season. We are approaching Halloween. The dark times of winter are ahead of us. A lot of us are facing or avoiding facing our fears at this time. And so I thought it would be really helpful if we kind of get some direction around that topic. And to match the theme of Halloween, I got out my lights. So I have prepared 3 piles, and I did not choose any accompanying crystals or colors or objects today. I just chose 3 different decks that I want to use, and I'm not even going to cut them for you. I really want you to focus really on your intuition, on your energy, see which pile is calling you. In this reading, we are going to talk about what your fears are. We're going to talk about why you might be feeling that fear creep up, especially right now, because we do have to face the fact that there's a lot of different fears that we are carrying at all times with us. We're just going to highlight whichever one is most pressing at this time to you, of course. So we're going to take a look at what is your fear, why is this fear creeping up on you right now, and how can we manage to live with this fear? We're not trying to eradicate it, we're just trying to live with it in peace and in acceptance, okay? That's what we're going to take a look at today. So we are facing our fears. This is group 1, group 2, and group 3. I'm going to give you a moment to zone in or zone out, whichever you need to find your group. Timestamps are in the description below, and I will meet you at your reading. Hi Group 1, this is your reading if you chose the traditional Rider-Waite Smith deck. We are going to get right into it. So, we are talking about facing your fears. In order to have a conversation about facing your fears, we want to get an idea of what is it that we are afraid of, right? So for Group 1, let's talk about the fears of Group 1. For Group 1, let's talk about the fears of Group 1. We have the Queen of Wands. Don't mind me putting her down all crooked. We have the Ace of Swords. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? And we have the High Priestess. Wow. We have the Ten of Cups at the bottom of the deck right now. We're starting off strong in Group 1 right now. This is incredible. This is incredible. The most pressing fear that you are facing right now has to do with owning your truth. It has to do with owning your narrative, owning your power, stepping into your power, speaking up, possibly being seen. You might have some fears around being seen, but also being seen as someone who demands, who has needs, being seen as someone who has opinions. That is a strong fear coming through. Okay. There's also a strong fear around truly connecting with your intuition and bringing both on the same page, your intuitive knowledge as well as it's almost like, you know, a lot of times people will equate your intuition to your gut feeling. I don't think that's the case, not always, because our gut feeling oftentimes relates more so to instincts. And instincts are a little bit different from intuition, because an instinct can be a learned reaction. And there's something here about your fear of tapping into your instincts as well as into your intuition. There is a fear around, you may have, we'll get into the whys, but what's coming through right now is you may have been told that you are a little bit too aggressive. I almost said aggressive, which is not a name. Oh my goodness, which is not a word. So you may have been called names. Somebody may have called you names. It feels like you've been made to keep your opinions to yourself. Don't speak unless spoken to. You were not addressed. Oh, I'm hearing like angry reverberations that made you, that like echo in your ear, and so they make you oftentimes keep your truth to yourself. It's interesting that this is coming through as a fear. It's almost like you're afraid of your potential, you're afraid of acting out, you're afraid of stepping out of line, you're afraid of stepping out of character. And you're also really afraid, and it's interesting because again, I'm getting instinct and intuition, and you're afraid that you can't trust your instincts, and your intuition is always going to be there to tell you like gently to like listen to your gut, listen to your gut. And it's almost like you're afraid to open the door to your intuition because you think opening the door to your intuition allows your instincts to run rampant. It's like you are afraid of losing some sort of control through allowing your intuition to take over more control, which is absolutely not true. Absolutely not the case. You will not lose control by tapping into your intuition more. If anything, you will learn how to release your grip on control. There's a lot of fear around control here. And there's a lot of fear around the control of knowledge. Like you keep certain things, like I said, you keep your truth to yourself because if too many people know, it feels like they have some sort of hold on you. If they know too much about you, or if they know what it is that you're trying to do at this time, like it would give some of your power away. But more than other people, I see you fearing yourself, which is incredibly difficult because it's a sorry, this made me laugh. I just saw that word completely crooked down here. This made me laugh because I was just about, I'm like so in the zone, and I was about to say it's like a double-edged sword, and then I realized that that's literally what we're looking at. We are literally looking at a sword, and these are the two edges. You are afraid of your power, which is a double-edged sword, because also once you step into your power, you know that you have to act upon it. Right? Once you start listening to your intuition, you know it's going to tell you to act. And right now, you might be in an energy that's a little bit more passive or a little bit more accommodating towards other people. And you know that once you start listening to your intuition, see, and that's where I think you get it a little bit twisted, because I think you think standing up for yourself or voicing your perspective or your truth would have some kind of demanding attitude with it, and it doesn't have to. I think there's a very gentle way, but I forgot my train of thought when I was about to say that this is a double-edged sword, because it is a double-edged sword in terms of your instincts and your intuition. I'm trying to get back to where I was headed with that. I'm not sure. I lost it because that was it's such a literal joke. This is a double-edged sword. It is a double-edged sword, and when you wield it, when you wield your power, it almost feels like you're a little bit too scared to tap into your power because you understand how much there is of your power, and it's almost like, you know, when you use it all at once, or when you tap into it, it feels like it might overpower you. I'm almost getting some kind of narrative around Star Wars, like the idea of the Force and how it is a double-edged sword, right? It can, you can lean one way or another so easily. And I do see that you have a lot of there's a lot of powerful intellect that you have access to, and I think you have a lot of influence over people. And for some reason, there's this idea within you that if you fully embrace that would be a bad thing because you would not use it for good. I don't see that coming through though, because as long as you employ both of these, instinct and intuition, I don't see how you could fail. I don't see how you could choose to do wrong, you know? This is incredible. These are incredible cards to come out, to have this out as your fear. And I keep saying incredible because it actually kind of saddens me in a way. And I don't want you to feel bad or judge yourself. I'm not judging you, but it makes me feel sad because to me this feels like somebody who's afraid to bloom. It makes me really sad, actually. It's making me really sad. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to elicit this, but it's coming through and I can feel that sadness within you, especially with this sunflower. It makes me feel like you're afraid to bloom. You're afraid to bloom. All right, let's see why. Let's talk about why. Let's get 3 cards on for group 1. Let's talk about the roots of this fear. Let's talk about why this is holding you back. We have the Justice card. We have the 9 of Pentacles. Oh, and we have the Queen of Cups. Oy, my goodness, friend, what are you doing? Why are you so hard on yourself? And why are you so... You're like waiting in the shadows. Look at the 5 of Pentacles at the bottom of the deck right now. Yeah, strong lack mentality. There's some issues around self-worth here. There's some issues around feeling... Let me sit with this for a second. So I don't want to like overgeneralize. Yeah, okay. I'm getting some more nuance now because what's coming through is that partially part of the reason that you keep your truth to yourself is that you would rather protect your peace. You would rather protect yourself emotionally. You would rather, that's why waiting in the shadows, you would rather operate in the shadows, but you're not tapping fully into your power. You have been judged very harshly in the past and you've been held to a very high standard. And I think you've been made to believe that part of that high standard has to do with not acting out of character, right? What I said earlier, not acting out of line. Like you've been taught to walk a very thin line, and now I'm hearing I walk the line. I'm seeing a catwalk now. Like you've been taught to walk a very thin line, and very much to self-contain, to you've been taught to, yeah, you speak when spoken to, and if you have an issue, go deal with it by yourself. That's what's coming through in terms of why. That there's this idea of specifically with the energies that we're getting here, we have a lot of ladies on the table. And I'm getting like this attitude of like, that's not how a lady behaves. That's not what a lady does. It's very antiquated, to be quite honest, because the Queen of Wands is a fiery queen, right? And it's like you are afraid to tap into that. I also kind of want to add right now that there is also a fear of your own sexuality kind of intertwined in there. And so there is this longing that grows out of that, because you're not allowed to tap into this, or feel like you're not allowed to tap into this very fiery energy. There are things that you want to create. There are things that you want to conceptualize, and for some reason you've been made to be malleable. You've been made to be presentable. You've been made to be looked at, not like this feels so antiquated. And I'm again saying that without judgment, because I don't know where this kind of conditioning is coming from, but it feels very like I'm seeing like this very, like I'm getting like Jane Austen vibes. Like I'm getting just like very like Victorian style vibes of like, no, that's not how a lady behaves, and how dare you have opinions. A lady should only be, should only be. I can't even think that way. My brain won't let me go there, but a lady is there to entertain, that kind of idea. And it doesn't matter which gender you identify as, because there is still just this idea of you projecting that as a limitation onto yourself. And that doesn't mean that you have to be a lady, but it's more so of like, no, I can't say that because, or I can't voice these needs or voice these desires because it's not socially acceptable. Something about you is you're very self-taming, self-contained. And it comes from having been judged very harshly, but also having been put on some sort of pedestal where you're up on this pedestal and there's no room for you to be active, right? I'm getting like this, and again, it's I don't mean to gender it, but those are the images that I'm seeing of like a girl in a nice dress on a pedestal versus the boys in the backyard roughhousing, right? They get to experience their aggressions. They get to experience that fiery energy, and for some reason, again, no matter your gender expression, for some reason that fiery energy within you is very suppressed because it's something that you're afraid of letting out. And I think you're afraid of letting it out because of the judgment it would elicit from others. And then also you are very deep and very self-contained, and it's almost like there's almost this feeling of like, what's even the point of trying to explain myself to others? Nobody's gonna get it. I think you're also you're either well educated, well read, or well informed on some kind of specialty interest that you have. I think you're very studious, very observant. But again, you're very trained. I don't know how else to say it. Like it almost feels like and I mean this with absolutely no bad intent, but the imagery that I'm getting is almost like a show dog. Like look at how perfectly trimmed its hairs are, and look at how it's standing completely still and listening. Like it's very like, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm supposed to be, this is how I'm supposed to look, very much trying to fit an image, whether that is placed upon you by society or by your family, and then through conditioning, you uphold that projection. And I think what is coming through here is that when it comes to your fears, I think it's okay to try new things, to be a little bit messy, and to not hold yourself to such a high standard. But we're going to get another row. Just want to touch on the Five of Pentacles again, and I don't know what I'm going to say because I literally just could tell that I'm supposed to. With this Five of Pentacles coming out at the bottom of the deck as for the row of why, definitely talking about, oh, okay, so maybe you've had to be this way to earn your keep somewhere. You really had to like bend and squeeze your way into a place to feel like you belong, to feel like you're at home. Okay, so the imagery that I'm getting is like the black sheep of the family or the odd one out, and that doesn't necessarily like it's very interesting because I'm getting very like prose narratives here, like it's giving very old book vibes. I really think a lot of you are heavy readers, because what I'm getting here is like the kind of storyline of like Cinderella, like the stepchild that somehow has to be part of the family even though the part that they're related to isn't even in the picture anymore. Something very kind of odd like that. I'm also getting if you were part of if you went to a school where you were kind of an outcast because the school was like a private school, or it was just kind of like in a nicer area, and you may be part of a minority within the school demographic. And so it could have just been that you really had to work twice as hard to get half the attention or half the credit as your peers. And so I just see that you were really measured by a really extreme standard. And because of that, this fear to not fall out of line is like, I can't risk it. I'm not allowed to be this way. Other people can. I can't. But I do feel like whatever structure that created this conditioning isn't there anymore, and you are upholding it in some shape or form. Now, let's take a look at, let's get some advice on how to address these fears, this fear in particular. And I want to reiterate that we're talking about addressing the fear, because with fears, you can't completely eradicate them, right? You have these fears for a reason. It would be naive to think that you can just flip a switch and it will be gone and you can overcome this fear of being seen or being judged or being outspoken and connecting with your intuition. Again, there's something that is really kind of disconnecting you from the voice within you that's actually asking you to speak up more. And so that fear isn't going to, it's not going to vanish, but we're going to get some advice on how to manage it so that we can do the things that we desire to do, that we desire to achieve with this fear, right? Do it scared. So let's talk about how can Group 1 address these fears to manage them. We have the Ace of Cups. Interesting, the Four of Pentacles was right underneath that, and I won't take it out as an answer, but the fact that it was right underneath that means that you really hold back on having compassion for yourself, because this Ace of Cups is all about self-love. How to address this fear. We have the Death card. Yes, see, I don't think that this, whatever it was that was upholding this very strict regimen or very strict confinement, I think that that confinement is gone, and now you are the one instinctively, not instinctively because your instincts want to do otherwise, but kind of out of comfort, out of routine, and of course out of fear, upholding that confinement on your own. And so this Death card reminds us to pay attention to the things that have fallen away, to the restrictions that have changed, to the way that our life, ourselves, and our circumstances have changed, and particularly yourself. How have you changed, right? Because it may be that this was an energy that you had access to when you were much younger, and whenever you let it out, you got shamed for it because, again, that's not something that a young lady should say. That's not something a young lady should do. And so there's this ask to recognize that you are not, when you are tapping into that, you are not tapping into just like raw power that's just going to spill all over the table. You are going to be able to manipulate it and manage it, right? It's not just, I don't know, there's this fear of not being able to control it. Again, control is coming through, but there is something about addressing the fact that you are a different person. You are matured, you have grown, you are wise, and so there is control that you have in tapping into this. And let's get one more for how to address this fear. We have the Seven of Wands. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Queen of Swords, connecting with that Ace of Swords. Okay, so when it comes to addressing this fear, we need to be outspoken about the things that we are passionate about, and we need to that's just how it's coming through. I'm sorry, I don't know why I laughed all awkwardly like that, but we need to fight the good fight. And the good fight for you has to do with overcoming the ways in which you restrict yourself. And we also have to, in managing this fear, right, we have to accept that sometimes we will say, as we get more comfortable with voicing opinions, as we get more comfortable with following our instincts and speaking up, and being more brazen, we will run into situations where people say, oh, how dare you say that? Or will people get offended, or will misunderstand us? And you have to accept that sometimes some people are set on misunderstanding you and you will never change their mind. And sometimes you will be able to change their mind. And sometimes you won't even know that they're upset. But these are all obstacles that you will be able to face when the time comes, right? But as it is right now, it feels like you are overcompensating and kind of like, it's like you're the kind of person to have whole arguments in your mind, right, with another person, and the other person doesn't even know that they're happening. And you're having arguments for both sides, right? And so you're doing all that work internally, and in order to face this fear of being seen and being seen as someone who has an opinion that they are willing to voice. Oh no, how scary. Nothing is scarier than a woman with an opinion, right? Again, doesn't matter your gender, but still had to throw that out there. But this is about getting comfortable with a little bit of pushback, getting comfortable with, not retreating, but being open to, sure, let's talk about it. Show me what you got. Let's have an argument about it. And a good way to do this is to practice with people that you love. Practice with people that you trust in a loving way. Be like, hey, can we debate something? Like, let's talk about something. And you can have a debate about the most meaningless thing. Like, it doesn't have to be about anything important, but it's just about getting you to get more comfortable with opposition and getting you more comfortable with speaking your mind, right? And it's very possible that you are the kind of person that has very few close friends, and with them, when you're in a public setting, it's kind of like, oh, you don't really speak much. But when you're with your friends, you may have all the opinions on all the subject matters that you are very, very passionate about. And with your closest friends, you're willing to share those, right? Because I see that fire in you. But within public, you're just like, nope, can't share that I'm really, really passionate about this thing because, you don't want people to know, don't want people to have that kind of insight over me. I don't want people to think that I'm acting like out of obsession. It's very controlled behavior, like out to the public. And so this is talking about, practice with your friends to have more debates that are a little bit outside of your wheelhouse, that are a little bit uncomfortable. That would be one way to manage. But also with this Ace of Cups, it's really just talking about like truly knowing that people are going to love you or not love you. And you shouldn't have to make yourself smaller to find out which category you fall into with people. Now let's roll these dice. Let's get an idea about this fear and the energies on this fear for group 1. Okay, we have the 8th house. Yep, all about control and power. And then we have Aquarius and Uranus energy. Yeah, we need to level out the control here because right now you're exerting too much control upon yourself. And I feel like for no reason, because you know what? There are people that are out there that are less knowledgeable and less controlled than you, being so much louder than you with no base to stand on. It's okay for you to speak up a little bit. It's okay for you to have opinions. It's okay for you to be seen. It's okay for you to be seen as someone who has opinions. This Aquarius energy, I also feel like you are probably very creative, and there are lots of people that would probably benefit from being able to see what you are capable of creating when you really let yourself. Because again, you're holding in that instinct, which also means to me, if you are a creative person, that you are not being authentic in your creativity. So if you are an artist and you are controlling what is coming out, then you are not allowing art to be art. You are controlling perception. So you are kind of manipulating whatever medium you use to fit into someone else's perception. And that is not art, right? Art is a matter of expression. And so I do see that you are either holding back some kind of creative expression, whether that is a passion that you have that you want to pursue, whether that is an art that you want to create. We really need to work on accepting that you have a voice and that your voice is not just allowed to be heard, but that it needs to be heard. With this Uranus energy, along with Aquarius, which Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, it's all about revolutionizing for the betterment of the whole. And so every voice counts and every voice is necessary within that kind of energy. Okay, let me get off my soapbox. I will not have self-censoring, especially if you're an artist. You need to tap into your raw potential if you're an artist. Let's get you something to focus on. We're going to get you an archetype card. What's an archetype that group 1 should focus on in order to manage this fear? Whoop! That was a double backflip. A Fool card. I love that because that feels, I mean, it literally says fearlessly is the first word. We're talking about fears and the Fool card is like, just be fearless. Just be fearless. Oh, just fearless. Okay, it says fearlessly revealing emotion. That is the Queen of Wands. Fearlessly revealing emotion, helping people laugh at absurdity and hypocrisy. And whether you do that with humor, laughing, or whether you bring attention to absurdity and hypocrisy through social critique or satire within your artistic expression, such things. But really, this card is saying embrace the idea that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, it is impossible for you to be perfect. It is impossible for you to try to become perfect because you already are perfect. Okay, that's so corny, but I have to throw that out there. But no, really, truly, the idea is that it is impossible to be perfect, so please accept yourself as you are. And I can see in your energy that you would never place that kind of judgment on other people. You would never expect the people that you love to be perfect. So why are you expecting it from yourself? Okay, now let's get any last advice or considerations from this deck. Any last, or what was that? Or what was I going to say? Any last considerations or advice for group one? There we go. Look at that. Sun in eclipse. Exactly. This is beautiful. And we have protection at the bottom of the deck. Don't worry. If you're worried about people talking behind your back just because you have an opinion, who cares? You are protected, first of all. Sun in eclipse is really talking about eclipsing your ego because of emotional fears, right? The moon, we just had an eclipse. And this is about something that is hiding your power. And you are keeping that eclipse. I'm sorry. Like, I know there are lots of circumstances that created this, but it does feel like it's come up multiple times. It does feel like you are upholding this. And I want you to work on not upholding that high standard to yourself anymore. And we do that through allowing an ego death to take place and to compassionately love ourselves through our imperfection and because of our flaws, not in spite of them, but because of our flaws, and to transmute our flaws and our imperfections into whatever it is that we create, right? And understanding that just because there's a little pushback from other people doesn't mean it's the end of the world. People are allowed to not agree with you. People are allowed to not care for what you create either. There are going to be people that are going to feel so incredibly seen by the things that you say or create. And there are going to be people that are like, I don't get it. And that's totally fine, because you're not meant to be for everyone. You cannot make everyone happy. You're not a Nutella jar. I saw that on a print once. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Group one, I think this was a beautiful reading. I really hope it helps and it resonates and that you can, just be fearless. That is sorry, I just think that's hilarious. Just be fearless. But no, do it scared. Do it scared. You are allowed to have a significant voice, and you are allowed to step out of line. Okay? You will not lose the ground beneath your feet just because you don't walk the line. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. The information is in the description below. And other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. Hi, Group 2. This is your reading if you chose Group 2. Welcome to your reading. We're going to jump right into it. We're taking a look at your fears, facing our fears today. So we're going to pull some cards to take a look at what your fears are all about. In particular, one, the most pressing fear at this point in time, because obviously we live very complex lives, and so we have many fears that we constantly deal with on a daily basis, on a subconscious level, on a conscious level. So anyways, we're going to pull some cards on the most pressing fear, or at least the one that we can address at this time. And then we're going to pull some cards on why this fear is present, or why it is present at this time. And then we're going to pull some cards on how to properly address or manage this fear in an effective and empowered way, okay? All right, so for group 2, let's talk about it. What is a fear of group 2 that we need to address? What is a fear of group 2 we need to address? We have the Ten of Wands. Immediately I heard that there's a fear of like, I can't carry it all. I can't carry the burden. We have the High Priestess. Interesting, the High Priestess came out in reading 1 as well in the first row. And the Emperor, my goodness. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, and the Queen of Cups. Yeah, there's a lot of fear here that you're not going to be able to maintain a steady flow of energy, it feels. Also, there's a fear around not being able to contain yourself, not being able to control yourself. There was a similar energy in group 1, but this is more so on a masculine scale, it feels like. And that doesn't have to do anything with your gender expression. It's really just that your masculine energy in this is more entangled in this fear. But this has a lot more to do with there's a lot of fear around doing the right thing, and also investing efforts into the right direction. I think there's a fear here of putting a lot of work into something and then finding out that you've been following the wrong direction. I don't know that this is, well, let's just keep going. I was going to say, I don't know that this is founded in anything, in any kind of truth, but I definitely feel that there's a fear here around with this Emperor, around a father figure, a controlling partner, or a boss. And it feels like you just know that you can't take it much longer. And so there is a fear of buckling under the pressure. Buckling under the pressure. And the fear that is connecting around this High Priestess is almost like the knowledge of proving something right that you've already felt a long time, of like, that it's going to feel like I knew I couldn't do it, or I knew I was going to exhaust myself, or I knew I wasn't going to live up to this expectation. There's like a fear of proving something right. There's also a strong fear around obligations and getting entangled in obligations. And so you might be very, you might be a little bit energetically reclusive, because you don't want to add any more onto your plate, because it feels like you're already carrying a lot, you're already managing a lot, and it's like, I don't have any room for social engagements. I don't like, people just want things from me. This feels very exhausted. but there's also this fear of having to do more. It's interesting that we have this High Priestess in the middle. There's definitely a layer here where it's like there's a fear around taking on more responsibility, but at the same time with this High Priestess, there's an element to your fear that is like, I fear this because I know it's coming. Okay, also, of course, with the High Priestess, we have to honor that that is a direct correlation to our intuition. And so there is this fear around listening to our intuition when our intuition is telling us this is too much. When our intuition is telling us you need to stop. You need to stop loading on so much responsibilities. Or with the Ten of Wands, it could also be that we're overdoing it. This could be a fear around addiction. This could be a fear around overdoing it with our desires and like soothing our desires, self-satisfaction, whichever form that may take, whether that is through drugs, alcohol, food, consuming certain types of media. This really is about a fear of not being able to engage in moderation or balance. And again, there is a strong shaming aspect here, and that's why I'm kind of leaning into this energy of addiction, because there's a strong aspect to shame, especially with this Emperor. Because that doesn't have to be a father figure or a boss figure, but that's the way the energy expresses itself, is this judgment from above, this judgment of why can't you manage the way everyone else manages? And that's the voice, right? This is not me saying that. That is the false narrative that this energy is kind of infecting your mind with, of like, everybody else can manage perfectly fine. Why do you have to fall into an addiction? Why do you have to overdo it? Why can't you practice moderation? It's very, very strict. And I'm also seeing here a fear around moderation, like a fear around addiction, causing kind of like a back and forth between absolute restriction and then absolute indulgence, right? When the pendulum swings too far, it's like either complete restriction, and specifically, like if we're talking, for example, it doesn't have to be about food, but if we're talking about food, this is like the fear around not being able to, the fear of not being able to maintain moderation, and therefore we slip into either complete restriction or complete indulgence, right? But same goes for anything. Same goes for any kind of substance anyone can abuse, but also same goes for work, right? This could very much be about not knowing any moderation when it comes to work, or to physical exhaustion, or to sexual relations. Really anything that kind of gets the dopamine flowing in your brain. Really anything like that, where it's just like, okay, I either don't allow myself to do it for like 3 weeks, and then I indulge and I binge and I just kind of what's the word? Relapse. There's like it feels like a constant fear of recovering relapse. This might in particular be a fear around relapse, which is interesting because that would indicate to me that there's a fear around being so strict with yourself that it then pushes you into a relapse. And again, the fact that we have the High Priestess here indicates some kind of lack of trust when it comes to your intuition, when your intuition is actually trying to tell you like, hey, you've had enough, you're okay, you don't need more. There's a difficulty in listening or hearing that, possibly because our ego is kind of draining that out. And there might be a difficulty in knowing which voice to trust, your ego or your intuition. Let's get some more cards. With the Queen of Cups at the bottom of the deck in relation to this, it really indicates that there's some kind of emotional turmoil that this fear is, of course, attached to, which, I mean, duh, it's a fear. Most fears are emotionally rooted within our subconscious specifically. But let's talk about why is this fear coming up? Why is this a fear that group 2 is dealing with? We have the Knight of Cups. It seems like you are very often, I'm tempted to say constantly, but it does feel like very often you're seeking out outside stimulation in some regard. And so we are definitely, and which of course is normal. I mean, human beings need a lot of outside stimulation, but still it seems like we're particularly depending on outside stimulation for some sort of emotional resonance or emotional management. Give us some more cards on why is this a fear for group 2? Why is this a fear? We have the Eight of Wands. Again, very much like the energy that I'm feeling is like the way that I could explain it is almost like the energy that I would expect at a rave. Very much like wide-eyed, like let's go, next thing, next, club, bar, another club. Oh yeah, are you kidding me? We have the World card underneath that is the Knight of Wands. Look at that. Okay. We're putting the Knight of Wands away, but at the bottom of the deck we have the Page of Wands. All of these wands, okay. It seems like there's a lot of fear of missing out, but then there's also this leads to the larger fear of having too much input, sensory input. But the reason why is because it seems like you're looking for connection. But I think you may be looking for connection through difficult means. And by that I mean that you're kind of looking for sometimes energy is so difficult to explain because it's like I can feel the energy and it's like you're looking for a ripple, but the way your energy is looking for it is by splashing water everywhere, but you're looking for like a nice ripple. And I'm like, how on earth do I explain that? But that's the energy, that's how it feels. And it creates a lot of tension within you because then I think you get a really short temper with yourself. And I think you really kind of, you short circuit. That's coming through somehow. Like there's these short circuits where you get really impatient all of a sudden with yourself, and then it's kind of like, oh, forget about it. I'll just indulge, because it's like you don't have the patience to wait for the ripples to move and ripple back to you. So then it's like, I hope that makes sense to somebody. But we have the Knight of Cups, the Eight of Wands, and the World card. You're seeking, you're constantly seeking. Because you're constantly seeking, it's like you, especially with the Emperor over or underneath that World card, it really is feeling like you're constantly trying to conquer. And because you're trying to conquer so much, it's like, okay, I need more, I need more. But what you're really seeking, especially because we saw that Queen of Cups and we have this Knight of Cups, is you're seeking on an emotional basis, and you're trying to find that through experiences, but these experiences don't seem to go much deeper. But at the same time, you have this fear of buckling under these experiences. I think you're burning yourself out. And I think you know it, and I think you're afraid of it. I think you're burning yourself out a little bit. There's so much that you're trying to achieve. There's so much you have your sights set on the world, and you have so many plans, and you have so much that you're trying to manifest and that you're trying to ground. And I think you're really scared that you're not going to be able to do it. And therefore, when the pressure gets too high, you start to kind of seek distractions. But I also feel like I have two very distinct energies in this reading. And for some of you, not both are going to apply. Like the addictive quality may not express itself. There are some people here that I feel like are workaholics, and there are some people that's still an addictive quality, but there's some people that really, really are like afraid of failing at or within their career. And then there's some people that are really afraid of falling victim to some sort of addictive behavior. And still, I feel for some of you, the Venn diagram is, you might be in the middle of that. But others, it's kind of like either or. But in any case, for the ones that fear that they're not going to accomplish anything when it comes to your career, you're so passionate and you're so fired up that you are so fired up and passionate in like an emotional, like it's coming from a very deep emotional seeking, that I don't see how this could fail, right? Because it seems like you're very, like the why is a very focused energy. It's very intense. There's so much very sharp and intense, fiery energy here. And I don't see how this could fail unless you do burn yourself out. And I do see that that's part of your fear, that you're going to burn yourself out. But I will say that with this Eight of Wands, I feel like you're emotionally invested, and I feel like you're very exacting about things. And I do think that you've also, like, aside from having your sights set on conquering the world, I think you've already managed to understand a lot of your field of expertise or your part of the world. So I'm not as scared as you are, because you are very, but when the stakes are high, of course we're fearful, right? When we're so invested, when we're so emotionally invested, of course we're fearful that the thing that we want most, that we're going to fail at that. And that we have this fear of like, I've been following the wrong voice. But I don't feel that here. I just feel that you are like on 10 coffees. Your energy is like, it is like a ball of fire, which is why I'm feeling like this fear around addictive behaviors or excess, lack of moderation. And so I'm pretty sure, I mean, we'll see what comes out in the next row, but I'm pretty sure that that's what we're going to be talking about is on how to get you to calm down. Okay, how can we address the fear that we're talking about for group 2? How can we address this fear and make it more manageable? I am going to give you the same spiel I did for the other group, which is, you know, we're not trying to completely eradicate any fear, because the fear is there for many reasons, and you have to keep in mind this is a general reading, so we're just kind of getting a general idea, but fears are very personalized, and so we're not just going to flip a switch and it will be done with, right? So it's just a matter of how can we manage with the fear and understand how to do things even when we are fearful. Okay, so how can group 2 address this fear in an empowered way? We have the Hermit card. Yep. I told you, I feel like I already know what they're going to say. Because I'm like, I don't see any other way out of this than to like chill out, my dude. I'm sorry. We have the Hierophant. This is interesting though. Ugh, oh my goodness, this is going to drive me crazy. Whatever, good enough. And then one more. We have the Seven of Wands. More wands, my goodness. Can we maybe get it together here? And by that I don't mean you, I mean the cards. Okay, interesting, we have the Tower at the bottom of the deck. So, sorry, these cards. This deck, I love this deck so much, but these cards are always like very iffy. I want to see what's underneath here. The Nine of Cups. Love that. Love that. Oh my God. And what if it all works out? Imagine how shocking it would be if it all works out. The Nine of Cups. That is a card to be proud of. Underneath the Tower, are you kidding me? The Four of Cups. Yeah, you're not even going to be able to enjoy it when you win. You're not going to be able to enjoy it. Because here's the thing. When you get a grip on this fear of not being able to achieve something, whether that is overcoming an addiction or your career, when you achieve that, you're not going to even be able to celebrate yourself for that, because to you it's not going to feel like a victory, because to you it feels like this was literally step 1. To you it's going to feel like, well, yeah, but now I have to maintain. Same goes for an addiction as well as a career. It's like once you made it, you're not going to feel like you can rest, because you're going to feel like, well, shit, now I have to maintain this kind of energy, right? And that's why you have this fear, because also in a way you need to be prepped on how to be able to maintain the balance and moderation that you're trying to achieve, right? And that's what this Hierophant card is all about. Hierophant card, out of all the cards, is so much about maintaining, because the Hierophant is about, this is the Pope, right? And what does the Pope want you to do? The Pope wants you to show up to church every Sunday. Actually, the Pope would probably want you to show up more than just Sundays, and probably wants you to spend a lot more money than just on Sundays, but that's a whole different story. Let's not get into that. But the Pope, the Hierophant, is all about ritual, dedication, not just dedication, but also lifelong commitment, right? The Hierophant card is about till death do us part and beyond. It is to infinity and beyond, okay? So the Hierophant and the Hermit, those two together to me indicate that this is a dedication to infinity and beyond, to yourself. This is something that you're doing not to achieve something. Managing this fear is not about you getting to a goal. It's about a commitment that you're making to yourself for the rest of your life. And that's why I do feel like the theme of addiction is coming through. And again, you know, I'm talking about there, it does feel like there's two groups, one career group and one that has addictive behaviors. But again, there's an overlap here because your career, for a lot of people, especially in the society that we live in, your career feels like your entire life, right? And if it is truly a passion and it is your career, that's amazing, that's great, that's beautiful. However, have you heard about work-life balance? Could I interest you in some little work-life balance? Because it seems like you might need some. And this is talking about the commitment to self for yourself, not for your status, not for your career, not for the dopamine hits, not for the satisfaction, but for the longevity of you being able to spend time with yourself. And that this is going to be an ongoing battle, unfortunately. Just like I said with addiction, right? Addiction is, first of all, it is an illness, and it is a lifelong illness, right? There is no point in time in which you say, well, been 10 years, I think I'm good, I think I'm healed, give me a brandy. That doesn't happen. That's not how that goes, right? It is a lifelong battle that we have to fight to either deal with moderation or abstinence, right? And when it comes to the work environment, career things, this is about understanding that you are not just here to achieve, especially if you are employed for a company, right? If you are not self-employed, what is the point of you expanding so much of your time and energy and life force for a company to gain? What are you getting out of that? Some sort of bonuses, some sort of status, but what are you personally getting out of that? And I'm not trying to minimize your achievements, absolutely not. But this is talking about what is worth the sacrifice and what isn't, right? And especially with the Tower card here, this is addressing when we are recognizing that certain sacrifices aren't worth it, and so we're not willing to make them anymore, and so we're willing to put our pride ahead. And how important it is to be selective with your energy. Let's roll some dice. You are an intense person. You can tell that for sure. But you are also like, you're an achiever, and you are like, and I don't know, the conversation around addiction is so nuanced and so complex, and it gets so disrespected in lots of ways in society. It gets so like grotesquely simplified, and I do believe that people who are highly sensitive and who are highly just people with a ton of potential oftentimes succumb to addictions for various reasons, because of that energy of always seeking for that next engaging hit of dopamine, right? It's like having all of your receptors open, which is an incredible amount of potential, but it can also lead to all of this pressure, because potential can translate so easily in our society to pressure, and then it becomes this pressure that we put upon ourselves, and then we create these ways to self-gratify in the most secure way, instead of putting ourselves on the line to try to achieve something. It's kind of then anyways, let me not try and explain addiction in general, but it's just, I'm just trying to highlight that it's very complex, and it's not uncommon for very for people who suffer from addiction to be extremely complex people that buckle under a lot of potential that they recognize in themselves, and it's just it's a heavy burden. Okay, we have the 7th house, we have Jupiter, and we have Leo. Did I not say this earlier? I said all about experiences, or all about yeah, something like that. This is, you are that, I'm telling you, that energy that I was feeling, like the rippling versus like the impatient, like splashing of water. So the 7th house is all about relationships, but it is also about you in relation to others, how you connect to others. And then Jupiter energy along with Leo energy to me indicates that there is this drive of you seeking through experience to understand and to elevate yourself with this Leo energy too. So very much confirming a lot of seeking outside of yourself with the 7th house, seeking experiences outside of yourself in order to elevate yourself in some way. And that sounds kind of superficial, and I don't even mean it that way. But elevate yourself in a social status way, sure, but also in a way that really just makes you feel more proud of yourself. But you're so focused on that you put, I think, too much emphasis in seeking outside of yourself. And so managing this fear has a lot to do with seeking a little bit more inside of yourself and committing more to your own benefit and your own health, mental health, physical health, and understanding that that is worth fighting for, and that there are certain sacrifices that are not worth taking just for not just for the elevation in social status or anything like that, right? We have to be very aware of which sacrifices we're making, specifically when it comes to career. I feel like some of you are really kind of risking physical or mental health for the benefit of your career, and you are burning yourself out, and you're becoming really scared of what might happen when you buckle under the pressure. All right, let's pull some oracle cards. What is an aspect? We're going to get one from the archetype deck. An aspect that group 2 should embrace to move through this fear in an empowered way. We have engineer. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense, I feel like, because you seem like your energy feels like it's coming very much from root chakra and solar plexus chakra, which is very much about your stability and about raw energy. And it feels like Spirit wants you to move your energetic sources a little bit higher up in the chain, which has a lot more to do with your throat chakra. First of all, your heart chakra, your throat chakra, but also your third eye. We're trying to get you more into your mind and a little bit more analytical about what you're expending where. Because I do, and this isn't just now coming through, but also fits with the addictive behaviors. This could also have to do with spending behaviors. We didn't see a lot of coins, but still, this could have to do with balancing your checkbooks, right? On an energetic level. The light attribute, it says ability to give creative energy, which you have lots of, a practical expression and not just trying to throw it at everything, right? Talent for designing resolutions to common dilemmas. So this is really, along with the Hermit card, it's really trying to ask you to step more into your analytical energy and take note of what am I expending and what am I getting in return on an energetic level with your career or with the things that you do for instant gratification. So any kind of addictive behaviors, again, whether that is alcohol, whether that is smoking, food, anything that we do to an excess. In the moment that we are doing it, what are we feeling? That's when we have to kind of tap into our more logical side a little bit, and just not even to shame yourself, not to be like, oh my God, you're doing it again, but what were you feeling right before you started grabbing for that numbing agent? Because that's typically what it is, right? We have this fear of buckling under the pressure, and when we succumb to our addictions, is when we try to numb that fear or that pressure. And so what is it that is making us grab for that numbing agent in that moment so that we can be aware of our triggers? And I think that's very important. We're trying to be more aware of our work-life balance. We're trying to be aware of the balance that we need when it comes to the things that we indulge in, and we're trying to understand our triggers and when they ignite our needs for those indulgences. Okay? Because otherwise it feels like whenever you achieve something, you're not going to feel, even though you have reason to be proud of yourself, you're still going to be like, no, I can't, I don't know, there's just like this icky feeling in the back of our minds, because we still don't, even if we achieve, we still are like emotionally seeking, because we're seeking that connection with that seventh house, right? So yeah, I do feel like when it comes to managing this fear for you, it has a lot to do with really paying attention to what your needs and what your wants are. And those are not always the same. And you can address your needs without having to address your wants. You know, that's where we kind of have to self-parent, which is really difficult, but it is worth it with the Hierophant card, right? You are worth the commitment to yourself. It is difficult, but you are worth the commitment to yourself. Okay. Any last considerations or advice for group 2? Ooh. Interesting. We have the Sun at the bottom of the deck, and then we have a card that fell to the ground, which I think is really interesting because of the card that it is. Let me pick it up. It is Honey. And I think this is really important because for both groups of people, if you are the overachiever, career-driven girl boss, this is reminding you to enjoy. If you are more leaning towards the addiction issues, this is reminding you that you still deserve to enjoy. It's just about moderation. Nobody's here to shame you. Nobody's here to tell you that you have a problem. I'm not here to tell you that you have a problem. You have to know if you have a problem, right, with moderation. And if it is to the point where you restrict and then overindulge, that is your business. No, I'm not here to tell you if you have an addiction problem or not, but I can tell you from my own personal experience that it is very easy to fall into addictive behaviors. That doesn't have to mean that I identify with having an addiction, but it's easy to fall into addictive behaviors. And if I were to shame myself every time I fall into one of those behaviors, I wouldn't come out of it. And Honey is reminding us that you deserve to feel good, but we need to incorporate it in a way where you get to feel good on a regular basis, and not in this ebb and flow of absolute restriction and overindulgence, because it just doesn't feel healthy and it feels like it doesn't make you feel good about yourself. And so Honey with the 11 absolutely reminding you that you deserve to feel good about yourself, and you deserve to enjoy when you are indulging. But overindulging, of course, is something that it seems like you're very afraid of, and you restrict yourself because you think you're gonna overdo it. And so there's a little bit of trust necessary around that topic. That is for like the addiction side. Back to the career side, again, there's some overlap. But for the career side, it's really indicating that there is a lot of positive energy ahead of you, and I just don't want you to be so caught up that you're not going to be able to enjoy it. So this is a reminder from Spirit to give yourself work-life balance as much as possible whenever possible, and to enjoy the ride and enjoy your accomplishments. Because again, I don't see you failing. I don't see you buckling. The fear is that you're going to buckle. I don't see you failing. I don't see you buckling. Okay? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope it resonates. I hope it was interesting. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. The information is in the description below. And other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. Hi, Group 3. This is your reading. We are going to get right into it. And we are talking about facing your fear. So we are going to focus on the most prevalent fear that you need to be addressing at this time for whatever reason. We're going to kind of zone in on one main fear. There are lots of fears that accompany us throughout every day, subconsciously, consciously. We can't address them all, not tonight, but we will address the most pressing ones. So for Group 3, let's talk about the fear that Group 3 is facing at this time. We have the number 11. This is a tarot and oracle deck mixed together, so I read this one a little bit differently, just a heads up, but just stay with me. Also with the lighting kind of dark today, which I did just for the mood, but it makes it kind of difficult for you to see the cards to begin with, so just kind of stick with my voice. Okay, we have 11, and then we have the 5 of Swords, and we have the 8 of Cups. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Tower. Interesting. Very contemplative energy, almost existential here. There's a fear, definitely a fear of the unknown, but that feels kind of vague, right? But there's a fear of I knew that this reading with this deck was going to be more complex than the others. This is very nuanced, and so I'm trying to get it right. Just stick with me, stay with me, give me a moment. I want to get it right. You're a very sensitive person, and you're very thoughtful, and you're very focused on evolving and very focused on trying to be better, trying to do better, and trying to serve in some capacity. And so there's a lot, because I think you're trying to be of service. Sorry, I just looked up and saw we're all crooked in the viewfinder. Because I think you're trying very hard to be of service to people. There is a fear of being, oh, ouch, that hurts just hearing it. It's a harsh sentence, but I'm gonna say it. There is a fear of being useless. There's a fear of not serving your purpose, and there's a fear of letting people down. Very, very harsh. In all three readings, expectations, of course, are very central in our fears. But when it comes to you, there is like this, there's definitely a strong connection to servitude and family. And perhaps you've been made to believe that you have to be of service, that somehow the evolution of the family depends on your service and on your ability to maintain and to provide. Like, this is definitely giving provider energy, pressures of a provider and the fear of not being able to provide. It's giving, honestly, the way that I'm able to relate to this is kind of like second generation immigrant, where, you know, the first generation is made a lot of sacrifice to come to a new place in order to provide a different kind of life, and therefore second generation immigrants, or, you know, children of immigrants, have a lot of pressure to succeed and therefore be able to provide to make up for the sacrifices that happened in the past. And so there's a lot of fear here of not being able to succeed in a way that you may not be able to take care of someone. And now the qualifier of immigrant doesn't have to apply. It's just a way for me to explain the energy that I'm sensing. But there is definitely this feeling of sacrifice, and there is this feeling of criticism, servitude, and the fear of not being able to make something worth it, and the fear of not being able to pull your weight. And that is very heavy. That's a very heavy fear to hold, because it feels like not feeling good enough for a role that was cast upon you before you were even born, right? Especially, let me give you some close-ups here. It's kind of hard to see with the lighting, but this card, Nebula, it says theory, ideation, process, and these are some like prehistoric birds, and there's a volcano erupting back here, and this mother is trying to protect her eggs. This Five of Swords is some icebergs. It says structural stability, foundation, risk analysis. And then we have the Eight of Cups. This could also have to do with, it doesn't have to solely rely on the fear of not being able to live up to someone else's expectation. It could also have to do with not being able to live up to your own expectation. For example, when it comes to parenthood, it says hiding from judgment, insecurity. So this could have to do with a fear around not being a good enough parent, or not being a good enough partner, not being a good enough teacher. I don't know, somebody here is a teacher. Not being a good enough whatever it is that you're doing. Like trying so hard to live up to some sort of servitude and feeling like I'm not doing enough. I'm not sacrificing enough because I've seen someone else sacrifice even more. And I know how much deeper it can go. And that's why I feel like I'm not doing enough. That's almost like And again, because I randomly picked up on a teacher, it's almost like thinking like, oh, I'm a teacher at this school, and I know that this is like a more privileged school, and I feel like I'm not doing enough because I know there are schools that are like that don't have as many resources, so I should be doing more to make up for that, or something like that. Like, it just feels, or because the school that you're at doesn't have enough resources, and so you feel like you have to pick up the slack and self-sacrifice in order to be able to teach at the level that you feel engaged enough, because you see beyond the issues that you're seeing in the classroom. Like, you're very aware of like the issues that these students are facing outside of the classroom. And so there is like this fear of you not being able to help in the way that you want to. Again, a lot of self-sacrifice and servitude that is really kind of driving this fear, which to me just indicates that there's this fear of not doing something right, not doing your job right, not doing your life right, not doing like just, it's almost like you're living on someone else's terms, or you're living on someone else's sacrifice, right? Which is where that immigrant energy came from. Like feeling this burden of sacrifice that is making you feel like I have to make the most of it. It's almost giving survivor's guilt. Yeah. Oh, it's heavy on the heart chakra. Very heavy. Let's try, let me get out of that. Let's get some energy on why. Why are you feeling this heavy energy? Heavy fear. Oh, that fell to the ground. We have the Page of Pentacles. We have the Four of Swords. Somebody sacrificed for you, and so you feel like you have to pay it forward. You have to like pay the bill somehow. Somebody sacrificed for you. And again, if that isn't like an immigrant parent, then that would be maybe you are trying to live up to the example that someone else set. So if you are a teacher, you want to live up to this idealized version of a teacher that you remember. And again, I'm just using these as examples. It doesn't mean you have to be a teacher, but whatever it is where you're feeling this fear, you're trying to live up to a very particular sacrifice, and it just feels like, well, let me get one more. I'm trying to not put my own opinions in here before we get all the information. We have the Six of Wands. It's just deepening. It's just deepening. We have the Lovers at the bottom of the deck. Yeah, somebody, okay. Somebody made significant sacrifices for you out of unconditional love, right? So this has to do with a parent or a parental figure or an authority figure, and you feel such obligation to live up to that sacrifice that they made. These cards say acknowledgement, devotion, modesty, courage, guardianship, conservation, warrior spirit, determination, virtue, family, affection, loved ones, connection. So the reason for this fear of not being able to live up to something is because there was very serious sacrifices made so you could be where you're trying to be. So this could even have to do with being really, really stressed out and feel fearful around living up to finishing your degree because you understand the sacrifices it took for your family to send you to college. Again, That's the way the energy is coming through. Make it fit for your story. But that's just an example. It just feels like there is this history of fighting the odds, and the odds for you to be where you are now create such a high expectations in you to even just maintain where you're at, because otherwise it's like, I'm not pulling my weight. Like, everybody fought for me to be where I'm at right now, and I'm not pulling my weight. And I'm not saying you are, but that's your fear. Your fear is like, I'm not doing it justice. I'm not bringing honor. Oof. Okay. I'm not bringing honor to the sacrifices that have been made in my name. Jesus, this is heavy. My goodness. Chill out, babes. And I'm sorry, I'm not saying this with any judgment, as always, but I just want you to kind of like take a breath. Take a breath. It also feels to me like you are fighting some kind of fight that used to be very open and is now very undercover. With this Four of Swords card coming out over this Five of Swords card, it kind of feels like this used to be something where it was like very actively and openly, we are fighting for this. We are fighting either for this equality or this right to do this. And now it just seems like very undercover. And because it's undercover, it's almost like the pressure is higher because it's like it's internalized. You've internalized the pressure instead of being able to kind of screech it out every now and then of like, we are fighting this. The battle has become internalized, which also again very much fits with the narrative of being second or even third generation immigrant, because there's so much repression that happens, and repression and internalizing of expectations and fears. And so this all kind of very much plays very nicely into the pressures of that kind of family dynamic. With the Six of Wands, I definitely see that there's also a lot of attention on you. So I don't think that this is just something that you're solely creating for yourself. I do feel like there are either family members or loved ones that have set certain expectations on you. I just don't know if they're as severe as you experience them to be. Meaning, people want to see you succeed because they want to see you win. And they want to see you win. And a lot of times in our society, because we live in a capitalist society, winning equates to, being successful when it comes to money things. And so I don't know, you have to know how this fits in, but I don't know that these people that want to see you succeed and want to see you win want to see that because they expect you to, as much as they just really want the best for you, right? But even when they just want the best for you, that can express itself as expectation. But I see it burdening you. I see the attention burdening you. At the same time, it's interesting because it feels like you come from humble beginnings in some regard because of this Page of Pentacles. We're coming from humble beginnings and really wanting to make the most of it. Oof. Okay. A lot of it's interesting because I do feel like in both the other readings we were dealing with the ideas of expectations in different ways, and in this way it just feels it feels like the kind of level of expectation that you can't argue with. Just the way that you're not supposed to really disrespect or argue or disagree with your elders, right? It's like, they have done their time. You do not disrespect them by through disobedience, you know? That kind of idea of like, it's a matter of respect. Like the expectations that are set here, it just kind of feels to me like there's a little bit of miscommunication though in some areas, because I feel like for some people here, it's like that expectation is more so blown out of proportion in your mind because you are so humble and so aware of the road it took for you to get where you're at right now. And so it's like you I don't know how the rest of that word goes. Exacerbates? Can you please tell me? I know the word, but I can't get it out of my brain right now. Exacerbate. Anyways, you know, you just blow it out of proportion. That expectation, because it's like, I want to bring honor to my family. I want to be able to provide. I want to be able to do those things because I am aware of the sacrifices that were made in my to my benefit. So for some of you, it's not even like your family is incredibly demanding. It's just you've internalized that, right? Okay. Now, let's take a look at how can you address this fear in an empowered way? How can we integrate this fear? And I'll give you the same spiel as the others, as in fears are not meant to completely be eradicated. Sure, there are some certain unfounded fears that we have that we want to overcome. But it's kind of naive to think that we can just talk about a fear and thereby flip a switch and you're done and you're cured. Ta-da! That's not how it works. And so I want to be very upfront about that we are just talking about how can I manage to feel empowered despite being fearful of whatever this is, right? So how can we manage this fear for group 3? We have the Chariot. Interesting that that card has a tree on it, right? Immediately making me think of a family tree. Understanding that you come from a family tree, but you not only are your family tree, but you are also the fruit of your family tree. I don't know, there's something about same but separate. And we have the Four of Pentacles. Interesting how we go from the Four of Swords to the Four of Pentacles here. It's very much asking you to remain in your present. With the Chariot card and the Four of Pentacles, remain in your present and focused on the future and not so much wallowing or focusing on the past and the sacrifices of the past. Yes, you can honor them, but don't, like, they can't, I don't know, they can't color your everyday. And then we have the Five of Wands, and at the bottom of the deck we have the Moon. Okay. Understand that you are allowed to stray from servitude. You are allowed to stray from servitude to benefit your own selfish needs. You do not have to live your life in accordance to someone else just because sacrifices were made for you to be able to exist. There is a fight here between responsibility and honor, I think. Well, not between those two, but it's like responsibility and honor is fighting with desire and will. That's kind of what it feels like here. There's conflict between what you think you owe, and what you want to do. Spirit is reminding you to be in conversation with your emotions with this moon card, and understand when your subconscious, specifically from this iceberg, right, that internalized expectations of servitude, when your subconscious of internalized expectations of servitude are making decisions for you, right? When are you defaulting to, oh, this is when I have to activate my servitude mode, versus really being in the present, in your life, in your shoes, and really paying attention to what do I want right now and what do I need right now. Really paying attention to, it's incredible the way this role has lined up. It's really impressive, just because of a lot of things that I can't explain, but how we're going from this internalized energy and having it explained by really externalized aggression and trauma, and then that leading to this bottom card which says dogma, conviction, and devotion. It's like one leading to another. This is intergenerational. This definitely is, this group more than any of the others really feels like a lot of your fears are coming directly from family trauma, family patterns, and family conditioning. And that is something that is inescapable. But the more attention that you bring to the monster, the more attention you bring to the driving force of that, the easier you are going to be able to identify it when that comes up and ignites your fear, and you're like, oh, wait, that is my family conditioning. Oh, wait, that's my family trauma. That's my family patterns trying to come through. With the Chariot, it really kind of reminds me of you are free to choose differently, right? You don't have to repeat the past. You are free to choose differently. I think a lot of times people also often make choices that repeat family patterns, and we make those choices out of servitude, out of a responsibility to not outshine our parents in some regard. You are able to choose differently. Let's roll some dice. Let's talk about this fear. We have the 10th house, yeah. Okay, we have the 10th house, absolutely. We have Pisces, and we have the South Node. The 10th house is the house of career. It is the house of our public life, but it is also the house of our highest potential, because it is the highest point of your chart. And that's exactly it. There is this idea of like, I have to reach my highest potential. Why? The 10th house is directly opposite the 4th house, which is the house of family. And so it is at direct odds. And in order for you to reach your highest potential, I think you are at direct odds of the expectations that your family either directly has, subconsciously has, or the expectations that have been set by your family patterns or family traumas. And so there is this need to release, with the South Node, release the familiar patterns and to strive for more, but to strive for more for yourself and not out of servitude. And so this could look like choosing something I want to point out that we got Pisces energy and we have the moon, which is also represented by Pisces here. Choosing something for the benefit of your emotional soul, like feeding your soul and not feeding your family patterns, right? This has to do with feeding your soul and not serving the patterns of the past. This has to do with making choices that align with who you are in this lifetime. You have served many lifetimes and you have served many families and you have perpetuated and you have contributed to many, many timelines that offered a lot of growth to a lot of families. Again, I cannot tell you, you'll know, but I cannot tell you whether or not your family actually has the expectations that you're projecting, or whether that is just something that is so internalized that it's kind of difficult to tell which is which. But I do feel that the fear that you have is to not live up to the potential of servitude that your family sees in you, or that you think your family sees in you. And so therefore you probably make choices based on that fear that are safe, where whether it is in career or in the way that you express yourself creatively, you're like, I'm going to play it safe, right? I'm going to play it safe because I don't want to risk not being able to serve my family or my community or my students or my children. I'm going to play it safe. That is not going to fly. That is a fear that you are not going to be able to keep yourself small, because this is going to be an internal struggle that you face, because there's something within you that wants to stray from that path. There's something within you that does not want to repeat the family trauma of internalizing those kinds of expectations in the next generation, whether that is your own children, or whether that is students or anyone else that you have influence over. There is this want for you to do things differently. And so that is how I see you overcoming this fear of serving, is to do it your own way. You're like, I will serve you, but I'm gonna serve you. I'm sorry, I don't know, that had to come out. It's like, I am serving. We also needed to lighten it up a little bit. It was getting very intense. But no, truly though, it's like, yeah, the family or some kind of something that instilled some sort of humility in you was like, you need to repay or serve, and there is a part of you that is like, I understand the privilege that I have because of that, and there is a part of you that is like, I understand the responsibility that I feel, but you're gonna have to let me serve the way I'm capable of serving, and I'm going to serve in a way that differs from the narrative that's been perpetuated previously. Okay, anyways, that was so uncalled for. Let's get you an archetype card. Again, I do want to say that if this has to do with being afraid of not being a good parent, because I do see that as the fear, that has to do with the understanding of the pressures of people paying attention to how you deal with stressors, and then the way to manage that would be, again, to not adhere to other people's standards, right? To be like, hey, I see how you're doing it, but I know that I got to do it my way. Okay. This is the archetype deck. We're going to pull one card on an aspect, an energy that you should embrace in order to move through this fear feeling more empowered. What is an aspect that group 3 should embrace to feel more empowered when they are facing this fear? Ooh, we got a jumper. We have Virgin, interesting. Maintaining symbolic purity of heart and spirit. Yeah, interesting. This is, we also, right quick at the bottom of the deck, have hero, heroine, as in like overcoming, achieving. Yeah, that's a given. You're doing that already. But it's interesting how we've been talking so much about serving and servitude, and think about literally the one and only Virgin Mother. The Virgin Mary being like the ultimate symbol of servitude, for the benefit of, well, let's not get into that. That's religion. That's a whole different discussion. But maintaining symbolic purity, not necessarily physical, of heart and spirit. Even if you choose to do it differently, and even if you stray from what other people expect of you, you can do it. This is exactly what I was talking about with serving, but serving your way, right? And if that means that you want to express yourself creatively and try to achieve that way, then that's one way to do it. But also in terms of like serving the next generation, like just infusing them with this is like a fresh start. This is a blank page. This is, you know what, we're starting over. I'm not going to impose my family patterns on you. I'm trying to do this consciously and trying to actively maintain my triggers so that I can serve the next generation more objectively, which it is not possible. Everything is subjective, but still it's the attempt, it's the effort, and that's what matters, and that's what breaks generational patterns and generational curses. So maintaining symbolic purity of heart and spirit in regards to the sphere also indicates that you do not owe anyone anything just because you were born. You do not owe servitude just because you were born into a particular family, right? And it is very, very honorable of you to have that sensation of like, oh, but I want to serve my parents. Like, yeah, you should. You know, that's a healthy thing to have. But the way that it's internalized in this energy, it just feels like it's almost destructive, because it's actually keeping you from fulfilling your highest potential, because you're putting the servitude before fulfilling your potential. Okay, I was trying to see if I was getting anything else from that. It's interesting, I was just drawn to the shadow attribute, and it says fear of intimate union. So the opposite of that would be to embrace, to not be afraid to come into union with someone else, which I think also, this is a very interesting pile, because again, the family dynamics I think are very important here, and it's almost like your fear has to do with branching out, quite literally branching out from the family tree. The fear is around the 10th house, which is the furthest from the 4th house, which is family. Like there's a lot of fear of branching out. And so this fear of intimate union could have to do with being fearful of starting your own family, which again, this idea of like, I'm not worthy of, or I'm not going to live up to the expectations of having my own children, right? Or the expectations of my children. There's this fear of, am I capable of creating my own family? And this clearly, you have so much of this energy here that indicates that you're very aware of all of the things that I've spoken about. And that is necessary. To be able to reflect on those things is what's necessary to be able to create a family with intention. So do you have what it takes to be a good parent? Absolutely. Do you have what it takes to create your own family and branch out from your family tree? Absolutely. Okay, let's get you Any last advice or considerations for group 3 when it comes to this fear around not being able to serve or live up to the potential of expectations of serving and providing? The Moon card here and that Pisces energy is really just kind of like, take a deep breath, try to get more into the present and feeling your presence. Look at, we have the Lovers. Aww. I think, and then we have Unapologetic at the bottom of the deck. I think that's sweet too. I think with this Lovers card, it is reminding us of the beauty of family versus the obligation of family, right? The way that family kind of forces us into a shape. There's a lot of very heavy aspects to family in terms of expectations and conditioning and all of those things that are kind of like byproducts of being together. And this Lovers card is trying to remind us of the beauty of connection and family. And that, again, I said this earlier with the Six of Wands, the people that love you want to see you succeed. And that can feel like obligation, that can feel like expectation. But for the most part, people want to see you succeed because they want to see you happy and they want to see you safe and they want to see you taken care of. And it can be really difficult, especially going back to the archetype of immigrant generations. It can be really difficult to voice that because, you know, when we're talking about first generation and second generation immigrants, those early generations, there's a lot of suppressed trauma that kind of gets in the way of truly openly communicating because of the displacement and the suppression of culture and all those things that come hand in hand with having to leave your homeland. And so there's a lot there that kind of hinders open flow, and it can easily happen that when you bring up some kind of topic, it easily turns into making it sound like you're bratty or ungrateful when all you want to do is truly communicate. But this card, again, is reminding us that a lot of the sacrifices that take place on both ends come from a place of love. And a lot of times it can feel like that love is conditional. It is on us to try and embrace the unconditional aspects of family love whenever we are able to, but also to, my cat is jumping around in the back, but also to highlight that in the choices that we make moving forward when we create our own family, right? To highlight the beautiful aspects, not just the trauma that we got from our family tree, but also the beauty and the love that we got from our family tree, if we happened to be so lucky as to get that. But again, if this is like about students or something like that, same thing, right? To have that compassion for your students and to understand that, yeah, you have this really, really deep running expectation to live up to your best, but to understand that just as much compassion as you show your students, to also show that to yourself, because you are actively fighting an ongoing battle when it comes to like the structure of the school system and all those things. Like, there's a lot here that I could go into, but you're fighting an ongoing battle in making choices for that are different, right? You're choosing differently and you're doing that out of love. And just the same as the people before you, the people that had an influence on you or your family chose differently, right? Especially when we are talking about displacement from home, they chose differently out of love. And you get to live your life in a way where you get to choose differently out of love. My cat is choosing to have zoomies right now, but that's okay. We're at the end of the reading. That was the last card we were getting out. The Lovers, a beautiful reminder of why this worry is all like it, you know, at the core of it, it's loving energy, but we kind of wrap so much expectation and fear and worry around it that it kind of gets lost sometimes. So remember what's at the core of it all. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope it resonates and that it was interesting, hopefully constructive, hopefully made you think a little bit. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. The information is linked below. Other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care.